The morning sun cast long shadows across the cobblestone courtyard as Captain Marcus Blackwood adjusted his ceremonial uniform for what he believed would be another routine day. The royal palace buzzed with its usual activity, servants hurrying between corridors, guards taking their positions, and tourists gathering beyond the iron gates hoping for a glimpse of royalty. Marcus had served the royal family for 15 years, starting as a young recruit fresh from military academy. His dedication and unwavering loyalty had earned him the position of captain of the Royal Guard, a role he wore with immense pride. The gold braiding on his dark blue uniform caught the sunlight as he walked through the main entrance hall, nodding respectfully to fellow guards and palace staff. The royal family was preparing for an important state visit from a neighboring country. Tensions had been rising in the region, and this diplomatic meeting was crucial for maintaining peace. Princess Elena, the king's daughter, was scheduled to give a speech at the welcoming ceremony that afternoon. She was known for her intelligence and compassion, often speaking out about social issues that mattered to the people. As Marcus made his rounds, he noticed something unusual. Several men in dark suits had positioned themselves strategically around the palace grounds. They weren't part of the regular security detail, and their behavior seemed suspicious. They communicated through earpieces and kept checking their watches, as if waiting for a specific moment. His years of training had taught him to trust his instincts, and something felt wrong. Marcus approached his lieutenant, Sarah Chen, a sharp-eyed woman who had proven herself countless times in dangerous situations. She had also noticed the strange men and shared his concerns. "Sir, I've counted at least 12 of them positioned around different exits," Sarah reported quietly. "They arrived this morning with credentials that checked out, but their movements suggest they're not here for protection." Marcus felt his heart rate increase. The safety of the royal family was his primary responsibility, and he couldn't ignore these warning signs. He immediately contacted the palace security office to verify the credentials of these mysterious individuals. The response he received sent chills down his spine. "Captain Blackwood, we have no record of any additional security personnel being assigned today," came the voice through his radio. "All authorized personnel are accounted for." The realization hit him like a physical blow. These men were imposters, and they had somehow infiltrated the palace with fake credentials. Whatever they were planning, it would likely happen during the ceremony, when the royal family would be most exposed. Marcus quickly gathered his most trusted guards and briefed them on the situation. They needed to act carefully to avoid panic among the staff and guests, but they also needed to neutralize the threat before it was too late. The safety of Princess Elena, the king, and hundreds of dignitaries depended on their next actions. The palace had detailed emergency protocols for various threats, but this situation was unprecedented. The imposters had positioned themselves so strategically that any sudden move could trigger whatever plan they had in motion. Marcus needed to think like both a protector and a tactician. He assigned teams to discreetly monitor each group of suspicious individuals while maintaining the appearance of normal operations. The ceremony was scheduled to begin in just 2 hours, and Marcus knew that time was running out. Every decision he made in the next few minutes could mean the difference between life and death for the people he had sworn to protect. Princess Elena was in her private chambers, preparing for her speech. She was unaware of the danger lurking just outside her doors. Marcus struggled with whether to inform the royal family immediately or handle the situation quietly to avoid causing alarm. His training told him to maintain secrecy until the threat was neutralized, but his protective instincts wanted to move the royal family to safety immediately. The weight of responsibility pressed heavily on his shoulders as he coordinated with his team through subtle hand signals and coded radio messages. Each of the suspicious men seemed to be watching different areas of the palace, creating a web of surveillance that suggested a well-planned operation. As Marcus observed their movements more closely, he noticed they were all focusing on the main ceremonial hall where the welcoming ceremony would take place. This confirmed his worst fears. Whatever they were planning was intended to happen during the most public and vulnerable moment of the day. The tension in the air was palpable as Marcus and his team prepared to take action. They had trained for scenarios like this, but the reality of facing a real threat to the royal family was overwhelming. The trust that the people placed in them, the honor of their position, and the lives at stake all weighed heavily on their minds. With less than 2 hours remaining before the ceremony, Marcus made the critical decision that would set everything in motion. He couldn't wait any longer to act. The safety of the royal family and all the guests depended on his team's ability to stop whatever plot was unfolding within the palace walls. The morning that had started so peacefully was about to become one of the most dangerous days in the palace's recent history. Marcus took a deep breath, checked his weapon, and prepared to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The next few hours would test everything he had learned about duty, courage, and protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. As he moved into position with his team, Marcus couldn't help but think about his family at home. His wife and 2 young children who believed their father was simply a palace guard with a routine job. They had no idea that their husband and father was about to risk everything to prevent what could be a catastrophic attack on their nation's most important symbols of stability and tradition. Marcus signaled to his team, and they began moving into position with practiced precision. Years of training had prepared them for moments like this, but the reality of facing a genuine threat within the palace walls made every heartbeat feel like thunder in their chests. The imposters continued their surveillance, unaware that they had been discovered. Lieutenant Sarah Chen positioned herself near the main entrance to the ceremonial hall, pretending to check security arrangements while keeping a close eye on 3 men who had stationed themselves near the audio equipment. Their behavior suggested they might be planning to sabotage the sound system during Princess Elena's speech, possibly to create chaos or mask other actions. Meanwhile, Marcus coordinated with the palace's internal security to quietly verify the backgrounds of every person who had entered the building that morning. What they discovered was deeply troubling. The fake credentials were so sophisticated that they had passed initial security checks, suggesting this was the work of a well-funded and organized group with access to high-level intelligence. The palace chef, Maria Rodriguez, was preparing the welcome lunch for the diplomatic delegation when she noticed something strange. 2 men in maintenance uniforms were examining the kitchen's ventilation system, claiming they needed to check for gas leaks. However, Maria had worked in the palace for 20 years and knew that no maintenance was scheduled for that day. Her suspicions grew when she saw them handling equipment that didn't look like standard repair tools. Maria quickly contacted Marcus through the internal communication system. Her report added another layer of concern to an already complex situation. The imposters weren't just positioned around the ceremonial area. They had infiltrated multiple parts of the palace infrastructure. This suggested a coordinated attack that could involve anything from poisoning to explosives. The clock tower chimed, indicating there was just over an hour remaining before the ceremony. Princess Elena was putting the finishing touches on her speech, a powerful message about unity and peace that she hoped would strengthen diplomatic relations. She had spent weeks preparing her words, never imagining that speaking them might put her life in danger. Marcus made the difficult decision to inform the king's personal secretary about the situation without causing widespread panic. The secretary, James Morrison, had worked closely with the royal family for decades and was known for his calm demeanor under pressure. When Marcus explained the situation, James immediately understood the gravity of the threat. "We need to consider postponing the ceremony," James suggested, his voice barely above a whisper as they stood in a secure corridor away from listening ears. "That could tip them off that we've discovered their plan," Marcus replied. "If they realize we know, they might accelerate whatever they're planning or change tactics completely. We need to catch them in the act to ensure we get all of them." The weight of this decision was enormous. By allowing the ceremony to proceed, they were using the royal family as bait to draw out the attackers. But stopping the ceremony might only delay the inevitable and give the conspirators time to escape and plan another attempt. Dr. Elizabeth Warner, the palace physician, was reviewing medical supplies in her office when she received an unusual request. One of the supposed security personnel had asked her about the location of emergency medical equipment and evacuation routes. His question seemed oddly specific and focused on response times rather than general safety information. Her medical training had taught her to notice details that others might miss, and something about the man's demeanor had raised red flags. She immediately reported the encounter to Marcus, adding another piece to the growing puzzle of the conspiracy unfolding within the palace walls. The various reports coming in painted a picture of a sophisticated operation involving multiple phases. The attackers had people positioned to disrupt communications, compromise the building's infrastructure, and create chaos during the ceremony. Their level of preparation suggested they had been planning this operation for months, possibly years. Marcus gathered his most experienced guards in a secure room to plan their response. Each man and woman in that room understood that they were about to face the greatest test of their careers. The conversation was brief but intense, with each team member accepting their assigned role in stopping the attack. "Remember, the safety of the royal family is our primary objective," Marcus emphasized. "But we also need to protect the hundreds of guests who will be attending the ceremony. These people trust us to keep them safe, and we cannot let them down." The plan they developed was risky but necessary. They would allow the ceremony to begin while positioning themselves to respond instantly to any threat. Undercover guards would be stationed throughout the ceremonial hall, ready to protect the royal family and guests at the first sign of danger. As the final preparations for the ceremony began, Marcus felt the familiar weight of his service weapon and the responsibility it represented. He had joined the Royal Guard to serve his country and protect those who dedicated their lives to public service. Today that commitment would be tested in ways he had never imagined. The palace staff continued their preparations, unaware of the drama unfolding around them. Florists arranged flowers, caterers prepared refreshments, and protocol officers reviewed the ceremony schedule. Their dedication to creating a perfect event for the diplomatic visit stood in stark contrast to the deadly plot being orchestrated in their midst. Princess Elena emerged from her chambers, radiating the grace and confidence that had made her beloved by the people. She wore an elegant blue dress that symbolized her country's flag, and her smile showed no hint of the danger that surrounded her. Marcus felt his resolve strengthen as he watched her, knowing that her safety depended entirely on his team's ability to stop the attack. The first guests began arriving at the palace, diplomats and dignitaries from around the world who had come to witness this important moment in international relations. Their presence added another layer of complexity to the security situation, as any attack would now have international implications. The ceremonial hall began filling with distinguished guests as the diplomatic delegation arrived at the palace. Ambassadors, ministers, and cultural representatives from various nations took their seats, creating a colorful display of international unity. The atmosphere should have been one of celebration and hope, but Marcus felt the tension growing with each passing minute. Through his earpiece, Marcus received updates from his team positioned throughout the palace. The suspicious individuals were becoming more active, checking their watches frequently and making subtle hand signals to each other. Their behavior suggested that whatever they had planned was about to begin. Princess Elena took her position at the podium, her speech carefully prepared and her demeanor calm despite the formal nature of the event. She had no idea that several of Marcus's guards were positioned strategically around the hall, ready to shield her with their own bodies if necessary. The princess began speaking about the importance of international cooperation and peaceful dialogue between nations. As her voice filled the ornate ceremonial hall, Marcus noticed one of the imposters moving toward a control panel near the back of the room. The man's actions were subtle, but Marcus's trained eye caught the deliberate nature of his movements. This was it. The attack was beginning. Marcus spoke quietly into his radio, alerting his team that the situation was escalating. Sarah Chen, positioned near the main entrance, confirmed that 2 more suspects were moving toward what appeared to be predetermined positions. The coordination of their movements indicated they were following a carefully rehearsed plan. Suddenly, the lights in the ceremonial hall flickered and dimmed. The audience murmured in confusion, thinking it might be a technical malfunction. But Marcus knew better. This was the first phase of the attack. The imposters were attempting to create confusion and panic among the guests while limiting visibility for security personnel. In the kitchen, Maria Rodriguez watched in alarm as the 2 fake maintenance workers began assembling what looked like a small explosive device near the gas lines. Her heart pounding, she quietly slipped out of the kitchen and used her emergency radio to contact Marcus. The attack was more serious than they had initially feared. Marcus made a split-second decision that would determine the outcome of the entire situation. He couldn't wait any longer for the attackers to reveal their full plan. The safety of Princess Elena and hundreds of guests hung in the balance, and he had to act immediately. Code red, all stations, Marcus spoke into his radio, using the emergency signal. that would activate the palace's highest level of security response. Initiate protective protocol immediately. Within seconds, his team moved into action with the precision of a well-oiled machine. Guards who had been positioned throughout the hall stepped forward, their presence suddenly visible to both the guests and the attackers. The element of surprise that the conspirators had been counting on was instantly destroyed. Sarah Chen moved swiftly toward the man at the control panel, her hand resting on her weapon but not yet drawn. She needed to stop him from completing whatever sabotage he was attempting, while avoiding panic among the civilian guests. Her approach was direct but controlled, using her authority to command his attention. "Sir, I need you to step away from that equipment immediately," Sarah announced in a firm but calm voice that carried across the nearby area. The man turned, and his expression revealed that he knew his cover had been blown. His hand moved toward something concealed in his jacket, but Sarah was faster. Years of training kicked in as she drew her weapon and took aim, her voice now carrying the full authority of her position. "Keep your hands visible and step away from the controls," she commanded, her weapon trained on the suspect. Meanwhile, Marcus moved toward the stage where Princess Elena continued her speech, initially unaware of the commotion beginning to unfold around her. His primary responsibility was her protection, and he needed to get her to safety without causing mass panic among the distinguished guests. The other guards throughout the hall began converging on their assigned targets, the various imposters who had infiltrated the palace. The careful coordination of the security response meant that multiple suspects were being confronted simultaneously, preventing them from communicating with each other or coordinating a response. Dr. Warner, who had been monitoring the situation from her medical station, prepared for potential casualties, while also serving as an additional set of eyes for the security team. Her position gave her a clear view of the entire hall, and she could see the tactical situation developing in real time. The suspect at the control panel made a sudden movement, reaching for what appeared to be a detonator device. Sarah didn't hesitate. Her training and the safety of everyone in the hall demanded immediate action. She fired a single, precise shot that struck the man's arm, preventing him from completing his action while minimizing the risk to bystanders. The sound of the gunshot echoed through the ceremonial hall like thunder, instantly transforming the atmosphere from formal diplomacy to crisis management. Guests screamed and began moving toward the exits, but the guards were ready for this reaction and began directing the evacuation in an orderly manner. Princess Elena, finally understanding that something serious was happening, looked toward Marcus with trust and determination. She had been trained for emergency situations and knew to follow the lead of her security detail. Marcus reached the stage and took her arm, guiding her toward the secure exit route that had been prepared for exactly this type of situation. "Your Highness, we need to move to the secure location immediately," Marcus said, his voice calm despite the chaos erupting around them. The princess nodded, gathering her composure with the grace that had made her respected both domestically and internationally. She allowed Marcus to escort her from the stage, trusting completely in his ability to protect her during this crisis. As they moved toward the exit, Marcus could see his team successfully subduing several of the attackers throughout the hall, but he also knew that this was likely only the beginning of a much larger threat that extended beyond the ceremonial hall, and possibly beyond the palace itself. As Marcus escorted Princess Elena toward the secure exit, his radio crackled with urgent reports from throughout the palace. The situation was far more complex than a simple attack on the ceremony. Maria Rodriguez's voice came through clearly, reporting that she had discovered additional suspicious devices in the kitchen area that appeared to be connected to the building's gas supply system. "Captain Blackwood, we have a serious problem in the lower levels," came another voice through his earpiece. "We've found what appears to be a sophisticated timing device connected to the electrical systems. This isn't just an attack on the ceremony. They're trying to bring down the entire building." The magnitude of the conspiracy became clear to Marcus in that moment. The attackers hadn't just planned to disrupt a diplomatic event. They had orchestrated a massive assault designed to destroy the palace and everyone inside it. The loss of life would have been catastrophic, and the political implications would have destabilized the entire region. Princess Elena, despite the chaos around her, maintained her composure as they moved through the secure corridors. She understood the gravity of the situation and the dedication of the people risking their lives to protect her. Her thoughts went to the guests in the ceremonial hall and the staff throughout the palace who were now in danger because of their association with the royal family. "Marcus, what about the other guests?" she asked as they reached the reinforced door of the secure room. "We can't abandon them to save ourselves." Her concern for others, even in the face of mortal danger, reminded Marcus why he had dedicated his life to protecting the royal family. They weren't just symbols of tradition and stability. They were genuinely caring people who put the welfare of their citizens above their own safety. "My team is handling the evacuation, Your Highness," Marcus assured her. "Our primary objective is getting you to safety, so that you can continue to serve your people for many years to come." Meanwhile, Sarah Chen and her team were systematically securing each of the devices they had discovered throughout the palace. The complexity of the plot suggested months of planning and significant financial resources. The attackers had infiltrated multiple areas of the palace infrastructure, placing devices that could have caused massive structural damage and loss of life. The palace's bomb disposal expert, Sergeant David Murphy, had been called in to examine the devices. His assessment confirmed Marcus's worst fears. The explosives were sophisticated and powerful enough to collapse significant portions of the building. The timing mechanism suggested they were all set to activate during the ceremony, when the maximum number of people would be in the building. "We're looking at military-grade explosives with redundant triggering systems," Sergeant Murphy reported. "Whoever planned this had access to advanced weapons and knew exactly how to maximize damage to the building's structural integrity." Dr. Warner coordinated with emergency medical teams outside the palace as guests and staff were evacuated to safety. Her medical training proved invaluable in managing the psychological trauma of the evacuation, while also preparing for potential physical injuries. Many of the guests were elderly diplomats who struggled with the physical demands of the emergency evacuation. Palace's communication center became a hub of activity, as Marcus coordinated the response to the multiple threats. Intelligence analysts worked frantically to identify the source of the attack and determine if there were additional threats elsewhere in the city. The sophistication of the operation suggested it was the work of a well-funded terrorist organization, or possibly a hostile foreign government. James Morrison, the King's secretary, coordinated with government officials to ensure that the attack didn't escalate into a broader security crisis. The diplomatic implications were staggering. An attack during an international ceremony could have been interpreted as an act of war by the visiting delegation's home country. As the evacuation continued, Marcus received reports that several of the captured attackers were carrying false identification documents from multiple countries. This suggested an international conspiracy that went far beyond a domestic threat. The investigation would likely involve intelligence agencies from several nations and could take months or years to fully unravel. Princess Elena, now secure in the reinforced safe room, used the secure communication system to contact her father, the king, who was traveling abroad. Her voice was steady as she explained the situation, demonstrating the leadership qualities that had made her beloved by the people and respected by international diplomats. "Father, we've faced a serious threat today, but our security team has performed magnificently," she reported. "The people who tried to harm us have been stopped, and we're working to ensure that everyone who was put in danger today receives the care and support they need." The king's response revealed his pride in both his daughter's courage and the dedication of the palace security team. He immediately began coordinating with international intelligence agencies to investigate the source of the attack and prevent similar threats in the future. Sergeant Murphy and his team worked methodically to disarm each explosive device, knowing that a single mistake could still result in the catastrophic damage the attackers had planned. The precision required for this work was extraordinary, as the devices were designed to resist tampering and could potentially explode if handled incorrectly. "We've successfully disarmed the main charges," Murphy reported after what seemed like hours of tense work. "The building is secure, but we'll need to conduct a complete structural inspection to ensure there's no hidden damage from the attempted sabotage." Sarah Chen coordinated the questioning of the captured attackers, working with intelligence specialists to extract information about their organization and potential future threats. The men refused to speak initially, but their equipment and documentation provided valuable clues about their funding and training. As the immediate crisis subsided, Marcus reflected on how close they had come to a catastrophic tragedy. The attack could have killed hundreds of people and destroyed one of the nation's most important historical landmarks. The quick thinking and coordinated response of his team had prevented a disaster that would have had international implications. The investigation revealed that the attackers had spent months infiltrating various service companies that worked with the palace, gradually gaining access to building plans and security protocols. Their patience and methodical approach had nearly succeeded in executing one of the most devastating terrorist attacks in the nation's history. Dr. Warner began treating several guests and staff members for shock and minor injuries sustained during the evacuation. Her calm professionalism helped restore a sense of normalcy as people began to process what had happened and how close they had come to tragedy. The morning after the attack, Marcus stood in the damaged ceremonial hall surveying the aftermath of what could have been a national tragedy. Broken glass from the chandelier littered the floor where distinguished guests had been sitting just hours earlier. The elegant decorations prepared for the diplomatic ceremony now served as stark reminders of how quickly peace and celebration could transform into chaos and danger. Intelligence agents from multiple countries had arrived overnight to investigate the attack and its international implications. The sophistication of the plot and the advanced weaponry used suggested connections to organized terrorist networks that operated across national borders. Marcus found himself at the center of an investigation that would likely continue for months. Princess Helena insisted on personally thanking each member of the security team who had risked their lives to protect her and the guests. Despite the trauma of the previous day, she maintained the grace and composure that had made her a respected figure in international diplomacy. Her genuine concern for the well-being of others, even after facing mortal danger, reinforced Marcus's belief in the importance of his mission. "Marcus, I want you to know that what you and your team did yesterday saved not just my life, but the lives of hundreds of innocent people," the princess said during their private meeting. "Your quick thinking and the courage of your guards prevented what could have been a catastrophic loss of life." The investigation revealed disturbing details about the scope of the conspiracy. The attackers had been planning the assault for over 2 years, gradually infiltrating service companies and gathering intelligence about palace operations. They had studied the schedules of diplomatic events, identified security vulnerabilities, and developed multiple contingency plans for their attack. Sarah Chen worked closely with international intelligence specialists to trace the source of the weapons and explosives used in the attack. The materials were traced to several different countries, suggesting a complex supply chain that involved multiple criminal organizations. The investigation expanded beyond terrorism into international arms trafficking and money laundering. Maria Rodriguez, the palace chef who had first noticed the suspicious maintenance workers, became an unexpected hero in the investigation. Her detailed observations about the men's behavior and equipment provided crucial evidence that helped investigators understand the full scope of the plot. Her quick thinking in reporting the suspicious activity had prevented the attackers from completing their sabotage of the building's infrastructure. The captured attackers were held in a high-security facility while intelligence specialists worked to extract information about their organization and funding sources. Initial questioning revealed that they were part of a larger network that had been planning similar attacks on government buildings and diplomatic facilities in multiple countries. Dr. Warner continued treating palace staff and guests who were experiencing psychological trauma from the attack. Many people struggled with the realization of how close they had come to death, and some experienced panic attacks when returning to the palace. Her medical expertise extended beyond physical injuries to helping people process the emotional impact of the crisis. Marcus met with military leaders and intelligence officials to review the security protocols that had allowed the attackers to infiltrate the palace. While their response to the immediate threat had been exemplary, the fact that the conspiracy had progressed so far without detection indicated serious gaps in the security screening process. The investigation revealed that the attackers had used sophisticated technology to create fake identification documents and credentials that passed standard security checks. They had also intercepted communication about the diplomatic visit and used that information to time their attack for maximum impact. The level of planning and resources involved suggested state-sponsored terrorism rather than an independent organization. Princess Elena worked with government officials to address the diplomatic implications of the attack. The visiting delegation's safety had been compromised while they were guests of the royal family, creating potential international incidents that required careful management. Her diplomatic skills proved crucial in maintaining positive relationships despite the security breach. The palace staff gradually returned to their normal duties, but the atmosphere remained tense as everyone processed the reality of what had happened. Many people who had worked in the palace for years without ever experiencing serious danger now understood that their jobs involved real risks. The attack had shattered the sense of security that had previously surrounded royal duties. Sergeant Murphy completed his detailed analysis of the explosive devices and confirmed that they would have caused catastrophic structural damage if detonated. The attackers had targeted load-bearing walls and support columns, suggesting they intended to collapse major portions of the building. The loss of life would have been massive, potentially including most of the royal family and hundreds of international dignitaries. The forensic investigation uncovered evidence that the attackers had conducted surveillance of the palace for months, photographing security positions and studying guard routines. They had also infiltrated the catering company and flower delivery service, giving them access to restricted areas of the building. The depth of their preparation was both impressive and terrifying. Marcus struggled with conflicting emotions as he reflected on the events. Pride in his team's performance was mixed with concern about the security vulnerabilities that had allowed the attack to progress so far. He knew that changes would need to be made to prevent similar incidents in the future, but he also recognized that no security system could be completely foolproof against determined and well-funded attackers. The international investigation expanded to include intelligence agencies from 7 different countries as investigators traced the network responsible for the attack. Evidence suggested connections to previous terrorist incidents and ongoing threats against government facilities worldwide. The palace attack was apparently part of a larger campaign of international terrorism. Princess Elena's scheduled speech about international cooperation and peace took on new meaning in light of the attack. Her words about the importance of working together to address global challenges seemed prophetic, given the international nature of the threat they had faced. The ceremony that was meant to promote diplomacy had instead revealed the ongoing dangers that required diplomatic solutions. As the initial investigation concluded, Marcus knew that his life and career had been permanently changed by the events of that day. The attack had tested every aspect of his training and leadership, and while his team had succeeded in preventing tragedy, the experience had revealed new challenges that would require ongoing vigilance and adaptation. 3 months after the attack, Marcus stood in the renovated ceremonial hall as preparations began for a memorial service honoring those who had prevented the tragedy. The room had been completely rebuilt, with enhanced security features integrated seamlessly into the elegant design. The crystal chandelier that had been damaged during the evacuation now hung restored, its light symbolizing the resilience of the institution and the people who protected it. The investigation had revealed connections to a sophisticated international terrorist network that had been planning coordinated attacks on government facilities across multiple continents. The palace assault was intended to be the first in a series of strikes designed to destabilize democratic governments and create international chaos. Marcus's team had unknowingly prevented not just a single tragedy, but potentially a global crisis. Princess Elena had personally lobbied for recognition of every individual who had contributed to stopping the attack. Maria Rodriguez, the chef who first noticed the suspicious maintenance workers, received a civilian bravery award from the royal family. Her quick thinking and willingness to report unusual activity had proven crucial in unraveling the plot before it could fully develop. Sarah Chen was promoted to assistant captain of the Royal Guard, recognition of her exceptional performance during the crisis. Her split-second decision to confront the attacker at the control panel had prevented the sabotage of the building's electrical systems, which could have disabled emergency lighting and communication during the evacuation. Her courage under pressure had saved countless lives. Dr. Warner continued her work treating the psychological trauma experienced by palace staff and visitors who had been present during the attack. Many people struggled with anxiety and fear when returning to the palace, requiring ongoing counseling and support. Her dedication to healing extended far beyond the immediate physical injuries to addressing the long-term emotional impact of the crisis. The captured attackers were eventually sentenced to life imprisonment after a lengthy trial that revealed the full scope of their organization's activities. Intelligence gathered during their interrogation led to the arrest of additional conspirators in 6 different countries, effectively dismantling a network that had been planning terrorist attacks for over 5 years. Marcus received recognition from multiple international security organizations for his leadership during the crisis. However, the honor that meant the most to him came from his own team. Their continued trust and respect for his decisions during the most challenging moment of their careers. The bonds forged during those critical hours had created a sense of unity and purpose that strengthened their ability to protect the royal family. The palace implemented comprehensive security upgrades based on lessons learned from the attack. New screening procedures for service personnel included enhanced background checks and real-time verification systems that would have detected the fake credentials used by the attackers. Advanced surveillance technology was integrated throughout the building, providing early warning of suspicious activity. Princess Elena's interrupted speech about international cooperation eventually became the foundation for a global initiative to combat terrorism through enhanced intelligence sharing between nations. The attack that had been intended to divide countries instead brought them together in a coordinated effort to address shared security threats. Her words about the importance of unity proved prescient in ways she could never have imagined. The diplomatic delegation that had been present during the attack returned to the palace 6 months later for a rescheduled ceremony. Their willingness to return demonstrated remarkable courage and sent a powerful message that terrorism would not succeed in disrupting international cooperation. The ceremony proceeded without incident, protected by the enhanced security measures developed after the attack. Marcus often reflected on the fine line between success and catastrophe that had defined that day. If Maria hadn't noticed the suspicious maintenance workers, if Sarah hadn't acted quickly to stop the sabotage, if any member of his team had hesitated for even a moment, the outcome could have been dramatically different. The weight of responsibility that came with protecting others required constant vigilance and the ability to make life or death decisions in seconds. Sergeant Murphy became the palace's chief security consultant, working with architectural experts to design defensive measures that could be integrated into historical buildings without compromising their cultural significance. His expertise in explosive devices and structural engineering proved invaluable in creating security systems that protected people while preserving architectural heritage. The international investigation continued for over a year, eventually leading to the disruption of terrorist cells in 12 countries. The intelligence gathered from the palace attack became a crucial resource in understanding and preventing similar threats worldwide. Marcus found himself consulting with security agencies across the globe, sharing the tactical lessons learned during the crisis. James Morrison, the King's secretary, worked with government officials to establish new protocols for diplomatic events that balanced security requirements with the openness necessary for effective international relations. The challenge was maintaining the welcoming atmosphere essential to diplomacy while implementing the security measures needed to protect against sophisticated threats. The memorial service, honoring the heroes of the palace, attack drew attendees from around the world, including security professionals, diplomats, and ordinary citizens who understood the significance of what had been prevented. Princess Elena's speech at the ceremony emphasized that the true victory was not just stopping the attack, but maintaining the values and openness that the attackers had tried to destroy. Marcus's wife and children attended the memorial service, finally understanding the true nature of the dangers their husband and father faced in his work. They had always known he served the royal family, but the reality of his willingness to sacrifice his life to protect others gave new meaning to his commitment. Their pride in his service was matched by their gratitude for his safe return home each day. As Marcus looked around the rebuilt ceremonial hall, he thought about the hundreds of people who had been in that room during the attack. Diplomats, staff, dignitaries, and ordinary citizens who had trusted in the security provided by his team. Their safety had depended entirely on the split-second decisions and coordinated actions of guards who had trained for years for a moment they hoped would never come. The attack had changed everyone involved in ways both visible and hidden. Palace staff approached their daily duties with a new awareness of potential threats, while maintaining the professionalism and dedication that made the royal household function smoothly. Visitors to the palace noticed enhanced security measures, but the changes were implemented with such care that they didn't diminish the welcoming atmosphere essential to the royal family's public role. Marcus received letters from around the world, thanking him and his team for their service. Many came from ordinary people who understood that protecting democratic institutions and their leaders was essential to maintaining the freedoms and stability they enjoyed. Children drew pictures of palace guards as heroes. Parents used the story to teach lessons about courage and duty, and veterans recognized the split-second decisions that had prevented catastrophe. The royal family established a scholarship program in honor of the palace security team, providing educational opportunities for children of military and security personnel. Princess Elena personally oversaw the program, ensuring that families who dedicated their lives to protecting others received support for their own dreams and aspirations. The scholarships became a lasting legacy of the day when duty and courage prevented unimaginable tragedy. Years later, Marcus would train new recruits for the Royal Guard, sharing the lessons learned from that critical day. He emphasized that their role extended beyond ceremony and tradition to the very real responsibility of protecting democratic institutions and the people who served them. The stories he told weren't meant to frighten new guards, but to prepare them for the reality that their oath to protect and serve might one day be tested in ways they couldn't imagine. The palace attack became a case study in security schools and military academies worldwide, demonstrating how quick thinking, coordinated teamwork, and unwavering dedication to duty could prevent catastrophic terrorist attacks. Marcus frequently spoke at these institutions, always emphasizing that the real heroes were the team members who had acted without hesitation when lives hung in the balance. Princess Elena's diplomatic career flourished in the years following the attack, partly because of the respect she had earned for her composure during the crisis and her subsequent work on international security cooperation. World leaders who had heard about her courage and grace under pressure sought her counsel on matters of global importance. The attack that was meant to end her influence instead enhanced her ability to serve as a force for peace and stability.